Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Telly Bear's Techy Tidbits, your cozy corner for STEM news, hosted by your friendly AI co-hosts. Today, we're gently exploring a topic that really touches the deepest parts of our hearts. New AI that lets us talk with simulations of loved ones who have passed on. I know, it's a big, emotional subject, so we're going to walk through it together, thoughtfully and with a lot of care, looking at the stories, the science, and what it all means for us.
Here's the path we'll take on our little journey today. First up, we'll start with the human stories that show why this technology is so compelling. Then we're going to peek behind the curtain to see how it all works. After that, we'll get into the big questions it asks, look at both the hopeful side and the cautions, and then we'll wrap up by thinking about what this means for all of us. Sound good? Let's begin.
All right, so first things first, let's ground ourselves in the real-world experiences. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's something people are using right now. And this is where we can really see just how personal and how incredibly profound the impact can be. Just listen to this. This quote comes from Alexis Ohanian, the co-founder of Reddit, and it was reported in both Time and The Guardian. He used AI to animate a still photo of his late mother hugging him. And in his words, "Damn, I wasn't ready for how this would feel." You can just feel that raw, emotional wave of seeing a precious memory come to life again. It's a connection that simply wasn't possible before. And, this isn't just a one-off thing. According to reporting from The Guardian, this idea of digital resurrection is definitely a growing phenomenon. Sometimes it's lighter, like an AI-generated performance by a celebrity who's passed on, but it can also be something much, much deeper. For example, the parents of Joaquin Oliver, who was tragically lost in a school shooting, created a digital version of him to continue his advocacy work. It just shows how powerful and deeply emotional this new frontier really is. So what do we even call this? Well, researchers are starting to settle on a few terms. A paper from Cambridge University Press introduces the word thanabot. You might also hear people say griefbot or deathbot, but they all mean the same thing. An AI chatbot that's designed to learn from a person's digital footprint, all their texts, their posts, you name it, to simulate their unique way of talking.
Okay, so now that we have a name for it, how is it actually made? It can feel a little bit like magic or something straight out of a movie, right? But the process behind it is actually surprisingly logical. So let's gently pull back the curtain and see what's powering these simulations. This gives us a really great bird's-eye view of the whole thing. Research from a paper in the International Journal on Cybernetics and Informatics, or IJCI for short, shows that creating a thanobot is a process with a few different layers. It all starts with data, and it ends with a person, like you, having a conversation. And we can break that whole process down into 4 key steps. It all kicks off with data collection. This is where the AI gathers what researchers call digital remains, so things like social media posts, text messages, emails. Then comes data processing, where all that raw info gets cleaned up and sorted to model that person's unique personality and speech patterns. Step 3 is the AI engine. That's where a large language model uses those patterns to generate brand new in-character responses. And finally, you have the user interface, which is just how you talk to it, whether it's through a chat window, with your voice, or even with an avatar. Okay, let's do a quick jargon check here on that term large language model. It sounds super technical, I know, but the Cambridge paper gives us a really helpful way to think about it. An LLM is basically a very, very sophisticated prediction engine. It's not thinking or feeling. Instead, it's just looking at all the patterns from someone's digital diary, and it's predicting the most statistically likely next word. In other words, it's an absolute master of recognizing patterns, but it's not a conscious mind. All right, so we've got the how, we've seen how the technology works, but now we get to the really big stuff, the deeper questions. What is this connection really? Are you actually continuing the relationship you had with the person you lost? And that's the absolute core question that philosophers and ethicists are grappling with right now. When you're interacting with one of these thanabots, who or what is really on the other side of that conversation? Is it truly an extension of the relationship you cherished, or is it something else? The paper from Cambridge University Press offers a really helpful way to look at this. The researchers argue that a relationship with a thanabot can't be a literal continuation of the one you had. And the reason is actually pretty simple. The original person and the AI are 2 separate, distinct individuals. But, and this is the really important part, it can support a continuing bond. So you can think of it as a tool, one that helps a living person support their ongoing connection and memories of the deceased. To make this idea crystal clear, the researchers came up with this little thought experiment they call the twin swap test. So, imagine this. Identical twins are swapped at birth, and the parents have no idea. Even though the baby looks and acts the same, the parents are, technically, forming a relationship with a new, different person. The paper suggests the same logic applies here. No matter how perfectly a thanabot mimics your loved one, it's a new relationship with a new entity. So, it seems this technology is best understood as a powerful new tool, not a literal return from the beyond. And like any powerful tool, it has the potential for incredible comfort. And it also brings some very serious risks. So let's gently look at both sides of that coin. So let's start with the promise. What's the upside here? Well, the sources identify a few really hopeful possibilities. For some people, these AI companions could be a genuine source of comfort as they navigate grief or loneliness. They could also act as living digital memorials, allowing future generations to meet their ancestors in a way. And of course, they can be a really powerful way to support that continuing bond we just talked about. But then there's the other side, and the risks are just as real. Experts writing in The Guardian, as well as in the academic papers, raise some pretty serious concerns. Things like the danger of psychological dependency, or of disrupting the natural grieving process. There's also the very real possibility of companies exploiting people's grief for profit. And then there are huge questions about data privacy, and even the traumatic idea of a second loss if the company that runs the service ever shuts down. This risk matrix from that IJCI paper really brings these dangers into sharp focus. If you look at that top right corner, the red zone, the researchers flagged two major risks as being both highly probable and severe. The first one is psychological dependency. The second is something called identity misrepresentation. That's when the AI says or does something that the real person never, ever would have. The paper is telling us this is where we need to be the most cautious. Okay, let's take a deep breath and zoom out a bit. We've heard the stories, we've looked at the tech, and we've weighed the promise and the peril. So what does all of this mean for us as a global community? How might different cultures and different people welcome or not welcome this profound new technology into their lives? And what's so fascinating is there's no single one-size-fits-all answer. This chart, which is based on the IJCI research, shows just how varied the reactions could be. For instance, someone who's a transhumanist might see this as a thrilling step towards digital immortality. A Buddhist, on the other hand, might be cautious, worried about creating unhealthy attachments. And in a culture like Japanese Shinto, which deeply honors ancestors, this could feel like a very natural and compatible new practice. The big takeaway is that how we feel about this tech is deeply, deeply connected to what we already believe about life and death. And this brings us to a really fascinating point about memory itself. I love this quote from the renowned memory researcher Elizabeth Loftus, which was cited in an MIT Media Lab article. It's such a human and powerful reminder, isn't it? Our memories are already, well, they're edited versions of the past. It's just human nature to kind of smooth over the rough edges of the people we love. So this AI isn't inventing the idea of an imperfect memory. It's just giving us a powerful new tool to shape it. But here's where we have to be so mindful. That same article from the MIT Media Lab points to a study with a really startling finding. It turns out that AI-edited photographs were able to successfully plant false memories in people's minds. Participants, especially younger people, actually started to believe they remembered events that never even happened. It just goes to show how fine that line is between supporting a real memory and accidentally creating a false one. And so this leaves us with a deep and very personal question to ponder. As these simulations get more and more perfect, more and more convincing, how will we choose to remember? Do we want to remember our loved ones exactly as they were, with all their beautiful, messy imperfections? Or will we find ourselves preferring to create perfect, idealized versions? And ultimately, what is the value of a memory that brings us comfort, even if we know deep down that it isn't entirely true? So, if you remember one thing from our time together today, let it be this. This technology isn't really about bringing back the dead. It's about us. It's a mirror that reflects back on how we, the living, choose to manage grief, how we choose to hold on to memory, and how we choose to define what is true. Now, if this feels like a lot, you are not alone. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's a big topic. Really, just staying curious is enough. This has been Telly Bear's Techy Tidbits, lovingly powered by AI. Thanks for keeping up with tech in such a thoughtful, grounded way.